Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Entrepreneurship Lab. This is your host, Nevena Bajalac, welcoming you once again to the podcast where we bring you exquisite guests, entrepreneurs with practical experience, advice, and expertise to help you grow and scale your business. Today, our guest is coming all the way from Miami in the United States. He has law firm and offices in New York, in Miami, and he will talk to us about how he moved from self-employed to being a real business, growing and thriving business. And his name is Greg Ward. And Greg, actually, over the years since opening his company in 2012, had recovered over $500 million for his clients in settlements over 100 million. They had 50% annual growth rate and over 22 settlements with over $1 million. So some incredible record. He's also an entrepreneur. He gives back to community, and I'm very grateful that he took time today to be with us and share his experience. So Greg, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. I did a little bit of introduction, but obviously, did you study law? I'm assuming. How did you started with your own firm? Did you work for big firms, corporations when you started? So share your journey with us.
Sure. So I grew up in relatively poor. My parents were both poor, or lower middle class or lower class in the United States, which probably is better than a lot of people for sure, but we didn't have a lot of money growing up. And my path forward, I thought, to be affluent was to go to law school and become a lawyer. And I had some bumps in the road, but I eventually went to law school and graduated at the top of my class. And as you point out, I went to work for a very large law firm in the United States. It was in the top 200 law firms of size, and was making pretty good money. I was making over six figures back in the 90s, in the late 90s and early 2000. But I quickly realized that that was not a path to real success. And I thought about 2 years in that I could start my own firm. I had been a door-to-door salesman back when I was in college. I would go selling stuff door-to-door, copiers, fax machines, windows, siding, home improvements, that kind of thing. And I thought, wow, I have skills that can sell. I should go and start my own firm. And so after about 5 years, I did start my own firm. And when you talk about an entrepreneurial journey, that's really where it started. It actually started before that. I started studying how to start and run a company. And I read a lot of books. So my first big suggestion to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, read a lot. If you don't read a lot, watch a lot of videos on how to run a company, how to lead, how to manage accounting. And this is true for any country. I think that, we're in Miami. So this is, I think, the hub of the world in some ways, New York too. And many of the same problems that we have here in the United States in businesses, you will have around the world. And we'll get to some of those problems. Because what I like to do is, I want to try and share with you all the mistakes I made so that you don't make those same mistakes, and all the mistakes I've seen made in my career as a lawyer. And I don't practice anymore. I just run the business, and we have over 200 employees now. So I don't have time to go to court or anything. I just have to run it. So anyway,
That's
so I started
amazing.
my
Yeah.
own firm for the first time back in like 2007, I want to say. And that's where I started my entrepreneurial journey for real.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. And you have now over 200 employees. So I want to ask you, I do believe that there is a specific mindset, and entrepreneurship is definitely not for everyone. Do you feel that you always had, because you studied law, and there are some people that study law, or, they want to be a doctor and they enjoy doing the job, but they're not actually, it's a different having the skill of, for example, being a lawyer and the knowledge expertise than actually learning how to run a business. So do you feel that this is something that some people have it in them, or it's something that if you're hungry you will learn? What is your experience, let's say, when it comes to lawyer, for example?
I mean, it's great you pointed those two examples, because both doctors and lawyers, it's very hard for them to become entrepreneurs. The way the legal education in the United States is taught, they teach you everything that can go wrong. And your job as a lawyer is to avoid that. And so when you're trying to start a business, entrepreneurial is extremely high risk. And so you have all these things that are telling you can't do that, you can't do that. Now, when I grew up poor, I never had anything anyway. So for me, okay, I'm going to be poor again. I was poor before, I'll be poor again. I can handle that. But for most people who get into the legal profession, and I even think it's worse in medicine, because And I say that meaning that they don't teach you how to run a business. And first thing is mindset. You're right. You've got to be able to tolerate extraordinary amounts of risk.
Yeah.
And I just and for me, I always thought, my friends said, "Are you leaving to go start your own firm? Isn't that risky?" I said, it's riskier to be 100% dependent on a boss and whether they like you or not than it is to be 100% dependent on yourself. So for me, even looking at the risk, I always would rather bet on myself than bet on somebody else. And so I just looked at the risk differently. But yeah, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. And I mean, being a real entrepreneur, like not like a
Yes.
lot of people like to have their side jobs. But if you're all in and you stake your family and your ability to have a home on your business, you're a real entrepreneur. That's the risk, and then if you
Yeah.
can handle that risk, that's the first thing you got to do as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that because a lot of people are kind of one step in, they want, but they don't want to get the security. And I tell sometimes to people who come to me and they want to start something, I tell them, look, you have to jump in. That's the only way, because then you have the fire burning. You're like, I have to make it. And I see some people, if you're not hungry, or you have things provided, there's nothing wrong with that, provided for you, it will not drive you so much as when you have to make it, like you have no other choice. So that's very inspiring. But share with us a little bit more about how was it for you? Like when you switched, did you study it first, or was it a rapid decision? And yeah, how was the whole experience moving into? And you started being self-employed, right? So you were still
Correct.
practicing a lot just for yourself.
That's right. I had an office in my garage and a little table and a computer. That was my first law firm, which we'll get through all my failures. What I want to recommend to your listeners right now is the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yes.
I read that book more than 50 times. And when you say there's no other alternative, he has a, burn the boats example where you land on an island and you burn the boats. You have no other choice. When you have no option, you will be successful. And, you take calculated risks, but at some point you do have to take a risk and you have to risk losing everything. But yeah, so I was self-employed and I started and I studied a lot, but there's nothing like starting a business and making you learn it for real. The biggest problems I've had in my history of running businesses has always been personnel issues, people issues. And I can tell you in my career as a lawyer, the biggest problems with business are usually personnel or people issues. So the first big issue that you're going to probably face is either one, hiring your first employee, or bringing in a partner. And those are both very, very potentially dangerous areas where a lot of people get messed up. And hiring the first employee, we tend to always hire people or partner with people who are just like us. And that's, I think, a big mistake for most entrepreneurs. We need somebody who complements our skill sets and somebody who's got a different personality than us. You pointed out being the service provider as a lawyer, right? Somebody who actually provides the legal services, right? That doesn't qualify me to be an accountant, right? That doesn't qualify me to do the numbers. That doesn't qualify me to market. And so,
Yes.
I want to bring in, if I want to do the work, I've got to bring in somebody who can run the actual business side of things. And what happens a lot of times is people will have an idea for a beautiful business and they'll bring in an investor. And I've seen a lot of businesses go bad because the investor, wants to make money. The person who has the beautiful idea is 100% committed to the idea. They don't value the revenue as much, right? And so there'll be fights over we're not making any money because the investor wants to make a return, and the service provider will be like, yeah, but I'm doing the best I can do, and they just disconnect because they don't have alignment with their vision. So I can tell you that even now at my stage, we have over 200 employees. My biggest headaches are personnel headaches, finding the right people for the right job and making sure they're operating at their highest level daily, because we all have issues, right?
Yeah.
And that can kill a business early. I think
Yes.
worse than not having enough money or not having a commitment is having the wrong people around you. That could really kill your business. So be careful about that.
Yeah, and I see as a consulting a lot of companies actually that are fast growing now here in Dubai. It's definitely the biggest problem, and unfortunately, a little bit mentality of a lot of CEOs I come across is the turnover. This is a very moving area. People come and go, and turnover of staff is huge. And sometimes they're like, but why would I invest in training? They come and go. But
Right.
it's a mindset where you have to understand, because if you move the people, I don't know who said this, Bob Proctor or someone, I remember I listened. He said, if you move people from your company, you only have a building, you don't have a company. So actually, the people will make your company and the culture there. So I agree, and I think that for me, consulting, the hardest, I can write the process and everything, and you train people, and then you go back and they haven't even implemented 10%, and you go back again, and it's ongoing process. And then sometimes, yes, they don't want to fire someone because they like them, but they see they're not
Yeah.
performing well, so you're dragging, in letting go of that person, and it's tough because we are like business, but we also are human, so we don't want to have that. But tell me some mistakes that you made when it comes to starting a business, maybe with sales or marketing or whatever, something that comes to your mind that was a really
So
lesson
many
to learn. I
things, so
know,
many
I
things,
know.
right? So many things. First big lesson was properly value your service. A lot of times we believe that if we are the low cost provider or the discounted provider, that will increase sales. It does not, right? Especially when you're dealing with professional services, that's lawyers, doctors,
Yeah,
accountants. We think, okay, I'm going to charge half of what everybody else charges. You're still going to get beat up over your bill, right? That's going to happen. So you need to learn to value your service. Um, you talked about, by the way, firing people, how to do it. I'm very empathic. I love people a lot. I'm Christian, so I'm like, I really, want to try and live those values of bringing people in and helping support them. And, but here's how you fire someone. It comes from the movie Moneyball. And it was Jonah Hill. Brad Pitt tells Jonah Hill how to fire somebody. You go in, you sit down in a room with your back to the door so you can get up and leave. And you say, I'm sorry, it's not working out. Here's your severance package. I'll write you a letter of reference or whatever. And you say, I appreciate your time, but we just don't have a path forward. And then you get up and walk out of the room, right? Like you should have another person there to help offboard them, but don't get into the discussion about how to improve them. Don't get into the discussion about what they did wrong. Don't get into the discussion about how you were wrong, whatever it is. Stop, just have the conversation directly and then get up and walk out. Because if you stay, either they're going to try and convince you you're wrong or argue with you. They'll never agree. Oh, a little thumbs up. They'll never
yeah,
agree with what your reasons are. And they're going to hate you. The more you talk, the more they're going to hate you going out. So just make it quick and rip the Band-Aid off. They're professionals. Hopefully they'll move on, and hopefully you can do it and get maybe confidentiality and release with a severance package or something. But just be very direct about it, and don't try and don't. That's not the point to train them with what they did wrong. If they ask
yeah,
why, just say, look, we're in two different places, and we decided to go in a different direction. That's it.
yeah. And from a
That's it.
legal point of view, I think in HR, and they always say if you say certain things, they can use it, right? Back to you. So are there any cases that you experienced as a lawyer that employees were maybe suing or complaining because employer said something or
Yeah. Okay, so I used to do employment law. So this is now, by
okay,
the way, I have to give you the caveat. Nothing here is legal advice. Talk to your own lawyer. Laws vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. What I said is true in Florida in 2024, right? That's how it
yes.
works. But there are other things like New York has different laws than Florida has different laws
Dubai
than
is very
California.
much different, labor
Yeah,
law
everything
is
is
very
different,
much different. So yes,
right? So
but some
talk to your
some
local employment lawyer. But
yeah,
what can happen is, the big problem is people may complain and then the workplace doesn't take them seriously, and then they get fired, and then they're mad, and that's usually where you see somebody having a claim. The best place to deal with that is with communication before you're ready to fire them. The other problem that a lot of employers have is that they don't give feedback to their employees, and so they get and I'm even guilty of this too. Like, who wants to tell somebody they're doing a bad job, right? And so if you don't give feedback, and then all of a sudden they do something wrong, and then you don't say anything about it. They do something else wrong, you don't say anything about it. They do something else wrong, you don't say anything about it because you think, oh, they'll just get better. They'll realize they're wrong. They don't realize they're wrong. And then by the seventh time they've done it, you blow up and say, you're fired, get out. And they say, what, why? I thought we had a great thing. Yeah, but you messed up these six things. Well, you never told me that I messed up those six things. They think when they're messing up that that's okay because you didn't say anything about it. And so you as an employer, you've got to be very accountable to yourself, to hold them accountable to themselves. And if somebody does something that upsets you, address it immediately. Not being mean, just saying, hey, listen, when you did this, I don't agree with that. Don't do that. That's it. All I have to say. But we don't want to be that way because we want to be nice. And then it blows us up later on. We get blown up in our face.
yeah. Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you. And I want to ask you, who was the first person that you hired? So you started in the garage. Let's go back to that story. Your first
Hmm.
office. Who was the first employee? Are you one of those entrepreneurs who struggle to delegate? I am. That's like very hard. My personality is like a dominant personality. I know what I want. I do it. I'm an action taker, but I'm learning over the years that I have to delegate and let other people do things for me and let bring other experts. So are you the same? Maybe you're not. Maybe you're a different type of personality. And was it hard for you to delegate? Who is the first person you actually hired? Or maybe what do you recommend for entrepreneurs to hire? Who would be the first person to
Yeah.
hire?
So that's a long journey. I mean, this is a 20-year story because I started this business in 2012, but I had started several businesses before this. So let me touch on those.
Yeah.
My very, very first law firm, which was my first business, it was just me, and I had kind of contractors, right? I had worked in a, like what they call a virtual suite, where I had my office in my garage and I could go use a conference room and had a secretary that I could use part-time.
Yeah.
And I really couldn't delegate anything to them because they just collected mail and transferred phone calls, right? And I paid a flat fee for that every month.
Yeah.
Um, my first employee it wasn't an employee, it was a partner. I brought in a partner to that law firm, and we got an office space, and then we got a secretary. And I also, at the same time, around that time, had started a car dealership with a partner, and I started a property management company with a partner. And all the property management company and the car dealership, I gave documentation. I was more the money guy, and it just didn't go well. I didn't lose money, but I didn't make any money on those companies. The law firm grew. We hired a legal secretary, and I did struggle with delegation. I struggled with delegation until I realized what my time was actually worth. And then now and I recognize that other people can do it better than me. So here's kind of like there's 3 or 4 lessons wrapped up in this, but I'll just tell you as an entrepreneur, you're going to start off as just going to be you. You hire your
Yeah.
first person and you're going to delegate, but then you're going to micromanage, right? That's because you don't think they can do it better than you. I realized about 8 years ago that when I hire somebody in my business, I better hire people in my business who are better than me at the function I'm hiring them for. And if they're better than me at that, then I must delegate it to them, right? Because, I mean, for example, we do a lot of negotiations in my business.
Yeah.
I'd like to think I'm the best negotiator in my company. I am not. There are at least 10 people I can list in my company who are better negotiators than I am. And I need to just get out of the way and let them do their job. And so when I started letting them do their job and just shutting my mouth, I started making more money. I was like, okay. And that was like the first big breakthrough. And then managing people. Like I'm good at setting strategic vision. I'm good at systems and processes. As far as driving production within a team, I'm the nice guy, but I have the hard ass under me. I hope you can say that word.
Yeah.
Forgive me if I offended you. Under me, who really can crack the whip if need be and drive production to the numbers, right? And a very different personality from me, and they're better at that. So I let them do that. And if I need a result, I don't say, you push on this person, this person. I say, get me a better result. And they go out and do it because they're better at that than I am. And so ultimately, as you evolve, as you have an entrepreneur, which is, a solopreneur, always start with yourself, right? As you evolve, you want to look for people who have different skills than you, and then you got to trust them. And you don't micromanage them because that's still what our inclination is to do, tell people how to do things because we're insecure about it. Once you realize that somebody can be better than you at a job, because if they're not better than you at the job, they're not worth it. You're paying them money to be better at their job. So you got to force
Yeah.
yourself to delegate. And it's a tough transition, but once you realize there are people better than you at it, then it becomes much easier. I delegate everything now. I mean, the work I do is conversation, enhancing leadership, looking at metrics, saying we're lagging in this area, figure it out. If I have something that gets stuck for more than a month, I'll go with that team and I'll say, have you considered this? Have you considered this? Have you considered this? Have you considered this? But I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm asking them questions because they know the job better than me now.
Yeah.
I have 200 employees. They're all better than me in something. So
Yes, yes, amazing. And can you tell us a little bit more about creating processes and systems? Because 200 employees, it's, I don't know, in US, here it's still considered a medium-sized company, SME. But did you started creating processes and procedures for things to run smoothly? Did you ask the people you hired, hey, create for your department when it comes to reporting? Because now you're, of course, obviously looking at a lot of reports. What is something in that area that really helped you or that you created?
So there's another book by a guy named Vern Harnish called Scaling Up. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big Vern Harnish fan, and Growth Institute is their online platform. I'm friends with
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Marcos. He coaches me actually. Um, you but talk about systems and processes. You start off with checklists. Right up to about 15 employees to 20 employees, checklists work, right? You just have to do checklists for everything and make sure things are done. And I'm in a highly regulated business of law where we can mess things up. So we have to have checklists to make sure that everyone is doing the right things. After about 20 employees, you have multi-step processes you need to enforce, and that's when you get your systems and processes. And so you start
Yeah.
breaking things into departments at that point, and then you
Yes.
start breaking things down a little bit more. So it always starts with a checklist. And
Yeah.
you think about what is the easiest checklist, like how to answer the phone. We
Yeah.
have a
Or a
checklist how to
cleaner.
answer the phone,
When
right?
I
I
go
mean,
to companies and we are like, your cleaner has to have a checklist because I'm here for weeks. I haven't seen her clean the window. And then we put it on the checklist. Guess what? The same day she's cleaning the window. Like people will not do things if there's like they will first moment they will move away and not do it if they don't have
correct.
to. So they have to be often their employees, they have to be told how to do it. I'm not talking about leadership positions where we micromanage, but some employees. Exactly, like you said, picking up the phone as well,
So,
right?
so I look at that actually as management and accountability. I look at
Mm,
leadership as inspiring people to be the best selves. I look
yeah,
at management and accountability as what a real manager does, and that's in between
yes,
really the leader so you need some of these
yes,
mid-level managers to really
yes.
enforce that. But yeah, they've got to be accountable for their own lists. But you're 100% right. I mean, we've got checklists because I also own properties and we have management for the properties as well.
Mm,
And I remember I bought a property and there was no maintenance logs. I was like, you guys have to have maintenance logs. Like, how do I know if the property is good or not? And so grow organically. Like, don't try and do everything on the first day, right?
yeah,
And maybe do one checklist a day. Start
yeah,
doing that. And then when you hire the person, you've got to stack a checklist. This is how you answer the phone. Good morning.
yeah,
Thank you for calling the Ward Law Group. How may I be assistance to you?
yeah,
Right? Like, I know that's thank you for allowing me to serve you, or thank you for allowing me
yeah,
to be of service to you. So, we have
yeah,
quotes that you must read
yeah,
these things.
yeah,
And so then now we're 12 years in, and I had a guy who went in my office the other day. He called me up after he was in my office. He was another lawyer, and he said, "I want to let you know your receptionist is the best receptionist I've ever seen." Right? Because we've trained her on that.
yeah,
And then I gave her a Starbucks gift card. I said, "Hey, listen, this person said this about you. Good job. Here's a Starbucks gift card. And I gave her a big shout out in our huddle with all the employees. I
yeah,
said, I want to let you know." And I actually got two compliments within 2 days because somebody else came in and said, "Wow, your
yeah,
receptionist coffee was the best." And I was
yeah.
like, she got two Starbucks gift cards for that. So, but if we didn't have a checklist, trust me, no one would think that she's the best receptionist she's ever seen, right? It just wouldn't happen.
People
You got to have a
have to
check.
be trained, yeah. And what companies I'm trying to put that for a lot of CEOs to understand. They think the sales is a separate department, customer service is a separate department. I'm like, no, your receptionist should already be using assumption clause. Thank you for calling, you would love our company, our team is amazing. They're gonna like they should assume that, right, and pull that person to feel welcome, and that's closing a deal already. And if
Oh,
they're
let,
not
let me interject there.
professional, yeah,
You can put a recording on your loop. Why not have, like, my wife is our chief marketing officer, and she's amazing
yeah,
at marketing. She has a script that she puts on hold. If they're on hold, we don't like anybody on hold more than 30 seconds. But if they
yeah,
are, they're still hearing the loop of, we did this for our clients, and this is our client's number one. If you have a problem, here's the email address you email to.
yeah.
Customer service is our number one value, over and over again. So anytime they're hearing on hold, they have it. You can be closing people on the phone with the hold music.
Yes.
Instead of having
Yes.
music, you have, something about your company, amazing
Yeah,
achievements.
building credibility and showing the results you brought to people. So
Right. The
absolutely,
big
absolutely.
problem is most people, like CEOs, don't want to be babysat, right? We want to do what we want to do. They don't, and it's not babysitting, it's just basically training. And we think, I mean, I remember my first law firm, we had people, and my partner would say, look, they're grown-ups, they know how to do their job. I now say, no, nobody knows how to do their job. In fact, I hire people who are not trained so I can train them right. I don't
Yes.
want anyone who has experience with another law firm because that sets the bar or the ceiling,
Yes.
really. I want to
Yes.
hire somebody who's got no experience, who loves people, who loves give good customer service, and I will train them how to give the best customer service. And that's got to be your goal. You can't
Yeah.
just say, oh, they're going to do their job, because it just
No.
doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's your livelihood on the line. So you better care about it, because if it goes bad, you're losing your home
Yeah.
if you're all in.
Yeah. So I have a question. You said you had three businesses at the same time. Do you think that was a distraction? Do you think
Yep.
it's okay? Because entrepreneurs, we sometimes are excited, we make a little bit of money, we want to invest. But I also learned the hard way, trying to do a couple of businesses at the same time. And I saw like I couldn't put my energy and because it's if it's still not an entity that's run by itself like a business, it still depends a lot on you. What was your experience? Do you feel like it pull your energy and pull like the growth of the law practice?
Awful, terrible mistake. Would never do it again. In fact, I wasn't married to my wife at the time. When I met her, this was, I guess, 14 years ago. She was like, "Why are you wasting all your time with these other businesses?" And that's right around the time they were going under. And when I stopped doing that, at her suggestion, when I stopped doing that is when we started this law firm, and it just took off because you put in 100% of that. I mean, I don't know. There's an ego thing with entrepreneurs, and this is me too because I
Yes.
did it. There's an ego thing, like I can do anything with any business. And it's worse when you start making some money. Like let's say you're making 5 or 10 million a year, you got some money to what you will burn the money. There's another book, Managing Corporate Life Cycles by Adizes. He talks about this. It's called the go-go phase of your business, when you make cash and you make dumb investment decisions. Don't do it. Don't think that the really gold touch you have in this business will automatically translate into a shoe business or a construction business. It does not happen. It doesn't automatically translate. And it
Yeah.
will, it will cannibalize your business because you're going to be running around dealing with the problems of the other business, and you'll make less money. Make a ton of money in your main business, and then you can think about how you want to invest it in the market or in real
Yeah.
estate. And the real estate we buy are buildings we occupy, so I don't even have to deal with management. If it, so I'm saying,
Yeah.
so it's yeah, I definitely don't recommend multiple businesses. Anybody who comes in and says I'm a serial entrepreneur, I always kind of like raise my eyebrows a little bit. I say, really, tell me about your success. And the odds are they'll have one really good business and 10 awful businesses, right? I'm being very extreme here. I
I
want to
know
make
because it's true because we have so many ideas and we're so excited. Like you said, we have the ego, like, oh, I'm good at sales. I can do it here. I can do it. And we just want to multiply. I think we want to multiply and get like huge success so quick. But then I learned, oh, this is not working. This is just pulling me away. So
Yeah,
I
the
thank you
only
for
business
sharing
I would
that.
recommend,
Yeah.
like you can have an ancillary services business. Like for example, I now do a lot of staffing offshore. We hire people in other countries as contractors. I would consider putting that in a separate entity, right? The
Mm.
recruitment and training of that in a separate entity. And maybe do that for other law firms that are similarly situated, because I already know that 100%. It's going to be done the right way. There is really very little increase in time or money because I'm already doing it as part of my business, and I have the manager who runs that, right? But building it from the
Yeah.
ground up, oof, that's a terrible idea. And in an
Yeah.
industry I'm not familiar with, forget it. I'm smart enough now to know, I failed enough to know I don't have the magic touch in every area. I'm going to do what I know and do it better than everybody else, and then hopefully that will get me my revenue.
Yeah, and that's also from Think and Grow Rich, right? You want
Yep.
to specialize, and once you're known and very good at something, then success will come. Like when you are
Yeah.
really practicing a skill. So as we are wrapping up, I would love to ask you already share some mistakes with us, and thank you for that. It was really fun and honest. So what is something when you were starting and getting clients? So a lot of listeners are maybe in beginning phases and they need more clients. You mentioned that sometimes we really like don't price and people don't see it as a quality, so you are not attracting the right clients. But what were some things that you did to get clients? Are you a person who grew it more organically or marketing? At the time, I know social media was not so big, and even now, I mean, social media is big, but it's not necessarily going to drive so much clientele. It's not for every business the best way to go.
Right.
What was something that worked for you to get clients and customers?
I mean, for my law, but my wife is the chief marketing officer, and she's also the on-air talent. She's the one who goes on TV and everything. So she's really good at attracting clients. I'm good at selling to a certain segment of the audience, about 10%. Like there's 10% big cases, highly critical clients that I'm good at that. My wife is good at pretty much everyone else, and that's obviously driving the most of the revenue. But what I would tell you is that there are what I like to call a lot of marketing vultures. If you hire a consultant or if you're thinking about advertising or anything, everyone is interested in themselves. No one is interested in your business. You think that they would say, okay, if I get, Mr. Jones, a great client, then he's going to continue to re-up. They are not interested in that. They are interested in their monthly sales nut. And so they will sell you crap. See, I got to be careful with my profanity. They'll sell you garbage. And that happened to us a lot because we didn't know. And then my recommendation to you is figure out what works and then double down on that. And then double down on that until you start to see a decline in the returns. But you've got to track everything. Like branding is hokum. It's nonsense for the first 5 or 10 years. There's no such thing as branding. If they tell you you got to have a brand, forget it. You're fooling yourself. It's got to be actual sales, and you got to have a sales funnel, and you've got to have your conversion and everything, and know what your cost for client acquisition is. And that's all stuff you will learn over time. But if you listen to the consultants, particularly in the marketing area, I've lost a lot of money doing that. And the first thing they'll tell you is you can't track these results. Yes, you can. And if you can't do it, don't use that marketing avenue, or figure out a way to track those results in that marketing avenue, right? And we learned all that early on. Fortunately, we didn't lose as much money as we could have. And I learned enough to not trust people. And I'm always like I just the other day we blew $100,000 on an ad spend with a I don't want to disparage them, but it was their fault, but our fault too. And fortunately caught it. It was like a 3 or 4 day thing that we blew $100,000. I mean, it was bad. I'm not going to do that again. Right?
Yeah.
But it could have waited a month and it would have been $1 million,
Yes.
and we're looking at it daily. So,
Yes.
just be disciplined about that. And most people out there are looking out for themselves, not for you, no matter what they say. So be skeptical. And then when you find something that works, and that's what we did, we found a radio station that worked for us, and we started increasing until we topped out. And that spend was what we still spend that money to this day, right? And then we found another radio station, and we tested and tested and tested, and then we found another radio station that was good, and then we increased the budget until we topped out there. And then we went to TV, and we did so. We grew organically. It took us a few years, but we figured out our right mix. And now we're in SEO and everything else, which we track that too. So.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. And in your company, do you specialize at different type of law? Do you have different types of lawyers, or you specialize at something specific?
We just do personal injury. So like if you fall down, you get hurt, you get hurt in the workplace, you get in a car accident in the United States. We're licensed in several states. We have offices in New York and in Florida. We also handle cases in Texas, DC, Maryland, Massachusetts. And then we have co-counsel relationships throughout the country, but that's our primary where we're focusing our practices.
So all your hundreds of lawyers, they are focused only on personal injuries.
That is correct. That's all they do. Okay. I have lawyers who are working, who help support the business, right? So because you need lawyers in business too at our point. But yeah. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. I mean, Think and Grow Rich. One last thing I will say.
Yes.
Faith is a big part of my life. One of the things that happened when my business started going well, right before that, is I had a spiritual conversion. I'm a Christian, but I believe that most of what we're talking about can be found in the Bible. And so, if you have that, if that's your faith, figure out your faith before you start business. A lot of people get into business because they're kind of lost and they think that money is the way. Money's not the way. Get your spirituality, get your faith worked out before you start in business, because you will be tested. And the Bible says, build your house on rock, not on sand. If you don't have your faith figured out and you don't have a good relationship with your spouse, if you're married, the business will make that worse, not better. No business success or money success will ever solve your personal problems. So you got to get that stuff worked out before you start it. And, I came off sleeping on a sofa. I was a total disaster, and I started working on myself more and more. And I've solved a lot of my traumas and issues. And then I was able to get into business and be very successful. And, if you think that, the money, Steve Harvey said, if, the money doesn't change your character, it reveals who you really are. Yeah. If you're an a-hole now, you're going to be an a-hole worse with $50 million, and if you're a really good person, you're going to be really a better person at that level, because you're going to have the resources to help support other people and other organizations. So you got to work out who you are and work out your issues before you start a business, because that will be the fastest way to really crush your life. Is if you get a lot of money coming in and you don't have those spiritual and the faith issues and your relationship issues worked out, it will wreck you. And I pray that doesn't happen to any of you. It happened to me a couple times. So, just don't do what I did, and you'll learn from my mistakes. And I hope that is helpful for people.
Yeah. And we have to also learn from our own mistakes. I mean, we listen to these things, but you are on this journey as an entrepreneur where you actually, we're chasing the goal, but it's actually who you have to become. And like you said, when you spiritually and mentally become that person, then success happens. Until you are there, which is heartache that we don't want to admit. We're just like, I want it. Why didn't it happen yet? Right? Why I'm not here yet? Now I have a next goal. But to reach those next goals, you have to become that person. And that's why journey and struggles are. And yeah, so thank you, Greg. This was really incredible. I could speak with you forever.
Yeah,
I could ask you
you can
so
go a
many
couple
more
weeks actually.
questions.
So
Yeah, I can ask you so many more questions, but it was incredible. Thank you for sharing your story, and congratulations on your success and your beautiful family. And yes, thank you for being here, for listening. Thank you guys for being here listening. Don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't already, download the episodes, share it with at least one more person that can benefit from this as an entrepreneur. And I will see you in the next episode.